Okay, I am now going to share my screen. Welcome, everybody. This is my reminder to self. Okay, let me go back. All right. Thanks, everybody. Welcome. This is a meeting on DOCLINE routing tables for the former HISLIC group. If you're new to HISLIC, I will, or the idea of HISLIC, I will explain that later. My name is Margo Malachowski. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm an education and outreach coordinator for the network of the National Library of Medicine in Region 7. I'm also the point person for any DOCLINE concerns you might have in Region 7. Our office in Region 7 is located at UMass Chan Medical School in Worcester, Massachusetts. Today I am working from home, and so I live out in Western Massachusetts. Benny Finch, my colleague, is here with me today, and Benny will be dropping links in the chat and helping me in other technical sorts of ways so that I can concentrate on my slides. So thank you, Benny. We are recording this meeting today, and captions are available through Zoom. If you look at the CC at the bottom of your screen, you would be able to see the captions. I will be uploading the recording to YouTube, and the YouTube recording will be captioned as well. So I know sometimes people like to use the captions regardless of any, for a variety of reasons. So I will send the link to the recording out through the NASAL Special Interest Group for Maine and also the Maine Library Association Academic Interest Group. And I will also send out the slides and any links that we talk about today. Everybody has come in with their microphones muted to cut down on background noise. You can unmute yourselves for any questions or comments, or you can use the chat. So your voice and image could be recorded. I don't believe the chat is visible on recordings, but I will be reading any comments aloud for the sake of people who are watching the recording. And you can always contact me via email with any additional comments or questions. And it's on the slide here. And I will also be emailing you all so you can reply to that email. We start everything with a code of conduct. An NLM provides a welcoming and supportive environment for all people, regardless of background or identity. And as such, we expect respectful interactions with instructors and learners. And Benny can drop the link to the full code of conduct in the chat. So before we get into talking about DOCLINE routing tables, just a word about who we are. The National Institutes of Health is the nation's leading medical research agency. The National Library of Medicine is an institute at the NIH. NLM is the world's largest biomedical library, which produces information resources such as PubMed, clinicaltrials.gov, and Medline Plus, and DOCLINE. And NLM is the network of the National Library of Medicine. We are the outreach program of NLM. The network operates out of 7 regional medical libraries, or RMLs, and the RMLs offer training and funding opportunities to support equal access to biomedical information. So those are all of our acronyms. And I mentioned in my introduction that I work in Region 7. We are all in Region 7, and that is Connecticut, Maine, Massachusetts, New Hampshire, New York, Rhode Island, and Vermont. So DOCLINE. DOCLINE is the National Library of Medicine's interlibrary loan request routing system. And the purpose of the system is to provide efficient document delivery service for biomedical literature. There are tutorials on how to manage your holdings and things like that available online, as well as the manual is a PDF online. I'm the type of person who likes to download things and keep it in paper, but the DOCLINE manual does get updated frequently, and it's that those updates are online. So even if you have downloaded it in the past, you might want to take a look to see if anything has been changed or if features have been added. So the most updated version is available online. And I believe Benny has dropped the link for that page that has the tutorials and the manual. Okay, we are specifically talking about routing today. The routing algorithm finds potential lenders for all interlibrary loan requests via a routing algorithm that matches requests based on reported journal holdings. And I bolded the based on reported journal holdings just to as a talking point to remind folks to check your journal holdings annually. We've talked about sometimes doing spring cleaning on DOCLINE to take a look at all of your information in DOCLINE, make sure it's still updated. But for you, you might have slower periods of time. And if you're working in an academic library during the academic year where it might be good to take a look. And this is really to guard against you getting requests landing at your library that you can't fill. You might have journals you no longer hold for some reason, or licensing agreements that prohibit lending and such things as that. So you're under no obligation to include all of your journal holdings. We ask that you loan from at least 10 journals altogether. But take a look annually at your journal holdings and see and make sure you're still on target. The routing algorithm is what makes DOCLINE interlibrary loan prompt and accurate. And there's a web page that I asked Penny to drop the link to that has a more detailed explanation of the routing algorithm. So the system is intended for reciprocal interlibrary loan among biomedical libraries in the United States and Canada. So Canada, you will see Canadian libraries in DOCLINE, but please check your licensing agreements to see if you are allowed to lend to Canada or internationally. Some licensing agreements do not allow that. And I know for those of us, particularly in the Northeast, where Canada seems like our next is our next door neighbor in many cases, but it still doesn't mean that your licensing will allow you to loan. So there's that. DOCLINE enables libraries to borrow from and lend to one another. DOCLINE is not an article purchasing mechanism. And this is another line that I bolded, and this comes up more with hospital libraries and other organizations, less so with academic libraries, because sometimes a hospital will eliminate the library or the librarian position, either just general downsizing or when a librarian retires, and or sometimes other research organizations will do the same, but they'll still want to hang on to DOCLINE, so they'll assign it to somebody in an administration position. And although we allow for that, what sometimes they don't understand is that they are supposed to lend from their collection as well as borrow from other people's collections. So that's why I bolded that. So just to make it clear that this is all about reciprocating, and it's not Amazon for biomedical literature. Benny, is there anything in the chat that it's harder to see the chat when you are.
No, there's nothing in the chat yet.
Okay, cool. Thank you. I'll check in after a few slides to make sure. Okay. 24/7 access. So DOCLINE is available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Some DOCLINE activities are suspended on U.S. national holidays. Now, what has come up over the past couple of months is what if we have a federal government shutdown, which I'm knocking on wood right now, we haven't had. But that question got floated at NNLM, what happens? And so DOCLINE itself, because it's automated and it's routing on its own, it will still operate. But the people in Bethesda who are employed by the National Library of Medicine would be not working. So if anything goes wonky with DOCLINE, they wouldn't be around to fix it. You could always ask the regions to check. You could check with me to see if I could help you with something. And this is to so the National Library of Medicine has a cooperative agreement with these 7 regional medical libraries. And so the regional medical libraries get the money to run the outreach program. And so as a result, I'm a state employee. I work for the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. So even if there's a government shutdown on the federal level, I'm still working. But I have some administrative access to DOCLINE. So I can go in and look in places that you might not be able to, but I can't like fix things. So you could check with me, but DOCLINE itself should still be operational. There is scheduled maintenance that is announced to subscribers on this listserv, DOCLINE L email discussion list, and Benny has shared the link for that. I do recommend that if you are using DOCLINE that or somebody in your organization is on that list, or you have it on your general ILL at your library, or some other email. That is where maintenance and also updates to DOCLINE is announced. Also, sometimes you'll be on there and you'll hear other librarians saying, I can't log in this morning. Is it just me or is it everybody? And so you can find out that way if something else is going on. It's also a way in which NLM finds out that people are having trouble. So I do recommend that you sign up. Interlibrary loan costs. There's no charge to participate in DOCLINE. The instructions are or the criteria is in the manual, but basically if you are willing to loan from 10 journals, you can participate. But there are interlibrary loan transaction charges, and these transaction charges vary by lender. And this is going to come into play when we talk later about free reciprocal borrowing. The Medical Library Association has an EFTS program, which is Electronic Funds Transfer Program. That's an online billing system that collects an ILL charge and pays it to the lender less a transaction fee. And Benny can drop the link for that. This is a program of the Medical Library Association. It's not a program of the National Library of Medicine. We kind of like don't do money, but you don't need to be a member of the Medical Library Association to participate. And again, more information is available on that link. But the way it works is if you have an easy pass for your car with a transponder and you're driving on a toll road, and when you go down you have put money in the account, and when you go on a toll road, they take money out. Well, it's similar where you put money in an account, and when you borrow, money is taken out, and when you lend, money is taken from the lender, the borrower, and put into your account. So it is a handy way to handle invoicing and all of that if that's something you are interested in. Okay, choosing individual lenders. So this is where we're starting to get more into the routing table. And after I go through my slides, I'm going to go live and show you what these pages look like. So when you are choosing your individual lenders to put in your routing tables, you'll will want to look at their lend information, and there is where you will find if they participate in EFTS, and which is very handy if you are also participating in EFTS. If they handle rush and urgent patient care requests, and this usually comes up more for hospital librarians, where they want to be able to get things very quickly within 24 hours or as soon as possible because it's a patient care issue. You will be able to check delivery methods. These days, almost everything is email, but you'll be able to see what their delivery methods are and what their performance statistics are. We'll talk more about that later. And how much they charge for their requests. If they loan books and journals like actual physical hard copies. If they're able to loan internationally, and then below all the lend information is the library schedule. You are able to mark when you are open by days of the week and the hours that you are open. And you will also, it used to be back in the day, you had to reach out to NLM to tell them you were going on vacation and wanted to like disable your account during that time. You are now able to put in an out of office basically for your DOCLINE so that things won't land at your library while you are on vacation, or if you have a extended sick leave or something like that, you can close for that period of time without shutting down the whole operation. Okay, library groups, and I think I got a little discombobulated here. Okay, so here it is, my notes. Okay, library groups. So the reason this whole opportunity came up is because I was asked to look at the library groups in Region 7 and to see which ones are still operational. So library groups have reciprocal borrowing agreements amongst themselves. So sometimes this is due to a professional organization such as HISLIC, the former HISLIC. Sometimes libraries will get together around a medical specialty such as nursing, or a geographical area such as Maine, a shared characteristic, federal libraries. And the members agree to provide each other no charge or low charge interlibrary loan fulfillment. Again, if you know, this is also something you have to take a look at your licensing agreements to see if you are able to loan for free or for free, basically. So you need to take a look at that. And the only thing you need is a group of people and someone who agrees to be the contact person. Okay, the former HISLIC. So after 40 years of active incorporation, the members of the Maine-based Health Sciences Libraries and Information Consortium voted to disband in December 2018. This is not at all unusual. There are archives at the link that Benny can drop. And these consortiums had gotten together largely for interlibrary loan purposes, but also for social reasons. And just over time, they've all kind of disbanded. And in fact, well, I'll get to that in a second. So again, there is technically a HISLIC group in DOCLINE, and the library, like I said, the groups agreed to reciprocate among members. The current one lists Ashley because Ashley is, I believe, the heading up the special interest group for Maine libraries in Nasal right now. And there's listed 23 members, and I'll get back to that. In Region 7, the only library group in New England that is still actively participating in doing reciprocal borrowing and lending is Castle, which is in Connecticut. None of the other main New England states is really operating this way anymore. Library groups in New York are managed by library resource councils, which is a whole other discussion, but these are councils that are managed on a state level. So of the listed 23 libraries in that HISLIC library group in DOCLINE, most of them are not using HISLIC in a group in their routing tables. And that's why when I was doing outreach to find out what was happening with this library group, I was realizing, we should touch base and mostly do kind of a how to clean up your routing table information session. So that's what we're doing today. Benny, maybe this is when I'll stop again and see if there's any questions.
There are no questions in the chat at this time.
Okay, great. And there'll be time later on for me to go into that. So routing table basics. The system will select up to 20 potential lenders from your routing table that match your borrowing criteria, like what you need, and have the desired journal. And the routing algorithm will randomly route a request to a library. And again, there's that detailed explanation of the routing algorithm. And again, I will send the links out to everybody after this session. And you can learn more about routing table basics in the manual, but you'll see that there'll be cell number 1, which is if you have local reciprocal agreements, that's one example. Cell number 2, you could do a library group. And 3, in-state universities and a large medical centers that would have a robust collection. And then you might want to, in a different cell, do a large low-cost lenders. In cell 5, do another library group. And 6, do alternate coast lenders. And this is handy if you get requests that you are late in your day, but would be earlier in the day on the West Coast. And so folks are still working. And then any weekend lenders. And I took this example of routing table basics directly from the manual. So I do encourage you to take a look at the manual for more detailed explanation.
Margot, there is a comment in chat
Sure.
now. It just is from Janet. I just wanted to make a comment about using HISLIC as a group in the tables. I don't know if she wanted to unmute and
Sure. Go ahead and Janet, if you want to unmute.
Sorry about the background. I'm working from home and my parakeets are a bit loud.
Oh, it's all right.
So I just want to make a comment about the HISLIC using it as a group in the tables. The reason it's not used as a group in the tables is because we didn't want to overwhelm any of the larger libraries in the HISLIC group. So we set it up and we had a routing table algorithm that all of the HISLIC members were supposed to use, in which you put certain hospitals or certain libraries, not always hospital libraries, in certain levels of that table. So like Maine Medical Center, you weren't supposed to put that in the first level because they would get hit all the time.
Right.
So we functioned as a group, and we would use the HISLIC group to show that we weren't supposed to charge each other, but we didn't have it as a group in the table to prevent that from happening. So it was a little misleading for
right.
that it wasn't used as a group. It really was being used, just not in the way you thought it might be.
Okay. That is really helpful, Janet. Thank you for sharing that. So that was not information I knew. Okay. Great. So that information, aside, a lot of libraries have decided to join free share or do free share in addition to any library group that they belong to, more regional. So this is the largest library group, and Benny can drop the link for free share, which is, and actually it's a web page from the network of the National Library of Medicine. This has 1,284 members across the country that have agreed to do to not charge. So to participate in free share, your library must follow these guidelines. Review your licensing agreements to make sure your library is legally allowed to provide for no-cost lending, interlibrary loan. And then participate in free share by lending and borrowing in equal measure. And to contact your regional support person, me in this case, for more information about how to be added to the group. And libraries who participate in free share who don't follow the group's guidelines will be notified and removed from the group. So, and sometimes this comes up where they don't feel like people feel like people aren't loaning enough; they're just borrowing. So, there's also a library group for regions 1 and 7. I know that might sound like an odd number pairing, but region 1 is like the middle Atlantic states. So it's like Baltimore and, they're closer neighbors, New Jersey, so they're in that area. And so in the former regions, when it was the New England region and the middle Atlantic region, that's where this all came about. And now they're regions 1 and 7. And the same concerns with free share. Make sure your licensing agreements allow it, and also to lend as often as you borrow. Okay, so let's talk about the base fees a little bit. So, and when I go live, I'll show you what this looks like. So you can look for the request charges to see what base fees are for individual lenders and if those lenders participate in library groups. So I did take a screenshot of a couple of libraries, and on one side, it was Bay State Health, where I used to work. And they don't belong to any reciprocal groups. And as Janet had mentioned, they just felt like they didn't have the staff to respond to freely share at the same level. So they decided not to do reciprocal borrowing. And they charge everybody $15. Now, I believe these other two screenshots are from Maine Medical. And so they belong to the Basic Health Sciences Libraries Network, as well as Free Share, and they list HISLIC as well. And their base fee is $11, and they charge that for any non-BHSL, non-Maine, and non-Free Share library. So it is worth taking a look at. Again, this doesn't have to happen all the time. If you do an annual, let me take a look at my routing tables, at my journal holdings, this will be helpful for you to update, because the libraries themselves can decide how much they want to charge. And again, if they're participating in the EFTS program, there is a transaction fee that gets subtracted out. So there's that to consider as well. Avoiding poor lenders. So consider that lend information in the library profiles, and you will be able to see the time to fill and the fill rate. And again, I'll give you a quick glimpse of that later. And if you're identifying libraries that are just not filling very well, you can remove them from your routing table, and you can use a do not route to list to prevent requests from routing to individual libraries that are listed in library groups. Let me read here. So the do not route to list may be used to prevent requests from routing to individual libraries in a routing table or in all other libraries routing, or to temporarily prevent requests from routing to lenders listed individually in automated routing tables. So the best thing to do is, if you just have identified someone who's not lending very well, is just to remove them from your routing table rather than use this feature. This feature is really best for the library groups. And if you do see anyone who's not routing very well, you could shoot me an email, because I am able to look at an administrative level to see if this is an extended problem. During the pandemic, a lot of libraries lost their funding, and this was the hospital libraries especially hard hit. And sometimes libraries close very quickly, or sometimes when someone retires, it's just a loose end that doesn't get tied up, and there is actually no one paying attention to the DOCLINE account. This happened in Massachusetts, where there was a retirement during the pandemic, and in Holyoke, Massachusetts, and nobody even knew about the DOCLINE account. So I can take a look and I can follow up, but you're the ones that are in DOCLINE more than I am. I've just got this high level access. So if you see anything, please feel free to let me know. So for all libraries, you can see the most recent month. you can see the fill rate. This was from October for Bay State, and they had like an 89.87% fill rate, and their days to fill were 0.02. So they're really great at processing things quickly. And you can only for your library will you see this button that says request report dashboard. Now, as an administrator, I can see everybody's, but you will only see this for yourself. And also, I was thrown by the labeling on this, where request doesn't mean you're pushing a button to request a report. This is your request, like your ILL requests dashboard. When you check your routing tables, you can see some labels in blue. So it's white lettering with a blue box outline. NLM only means that these are folks that belong to, these are libraries that belong to DOCLINE only to borrow from the National Library of Medicine. These are libraries that are not loaning. And just for your information, we do allow this. This is a mechanism for libraries and library systems to borrow from the National Library of Medicine for $12 a document. So if these libraries are like Rumford Hospital, if that is in one of your routing cells, you'll want to edit and delete them because they are not going to loan to you. You will also see temporarily closed. As I mentioned earlier, you can set up, like if you're closed over the holidays or if you're closed for taking personal time, either for vacation or extended sick leave, or you have a staff member who's going to be out, you can set up a temporarily closed notice. And then closed, those are the folks that you will want to clean up your routing table. And to do that, there's an edit button. And when you click on edit, you will see this little box with the name of the hospital and an ability to X them out. And then you can update your routing cell. If you've decided you've made a mistake, you can always go back in and add them again. So it's a relatively safe procedure. Okay, so I am going to stop the sharing of my slides, and this is our contact information. Again, if you see any unresponsive libraries, we can investigate to see if it's a temporary situation. And again, during the pandemic, a lot of libraries had troubles. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and share what this looks like, and then I'll come back to you if you have any questions and I can take them. So let's see. Okay. So this is, I'm logged in, and again, I am on as a as a DOCLINE administrator. So I see today it says book and chapter request is temporarily unavailable. I don't know the details of that, but if you did need that today, please use the manual request form. So if there's anything that's going to happen to DOCLINE, you will see this kind of red notice running across the top of the page. I figured I could show Bay State because they are really pretty good. I won't embarrass them by showing off where they're at with their lending. So I worked here for 8 years, from 2008 to 2016. So if you scroll down to the lend information, here is where they are participating in EFTS. They do fill rush requests and urgent patient care requests. You can edit this to decide whether or not your library can handle that level of request. It's a turnaround time of 24 hours for rush, and urgent patient care really means I need this now. And you can add these comments to call us, and a lot of times, particularly with the urgent patient care, we always recommend, if you need something that urgently, give a call to the library to give them a heads up that this request is coming their way. You don't need to do this for an ordinary request, but if it's something urgent, we do recommend you do this. These are the ways that they accept most everything is email these days. These are lend alerts that you can set up. Depending on how often you get lend requests, you can set up to have your normal requests alerted to an email, your contact email. Baystate has only set up to get these alerts if they are getting a rush or urgent patient care request. This also lets us know when this information was last updated. And when I go in, when somebody says, you know, this library isn't responsive, and I'll take a look at those last updated dates, and sometimes I see it's been a long time since anything's been updated. So that's when I'll take a closer look. Here are the lenders' performance statistics. And so like Baystate's knocking it out of the park in November, 100%. And this also speaks to the fact that their journal holdings are up to date. So they're not getting requests that they can't fill. So that's going to improve their fill rate, and also the days to process. And so they're really on top of things. This I am seeing because I am an administrator, but if you were looking at Baystate's profile, you would not see this. You would only see it for your own. So here under lending groups, they do not belong to any free reciprocal borrowing groups. And here is the charge requests, and they charge $15. Maslin is a Massachusetts chapter. Wimlick I used to belong to, but it's pretty much defunct now. We were just in Western Massachusetts. We were a small but fun group. And then there's their loaning policies are here. Will they loan books? Will they loan physical journals? No. And will they loan internationally? No. And here is their library schedule. The days and the hours. Now I'm going to stop sharing. There's a great deal of interest among DOCLINE users to have the hours matter for when things route. And right now that's not technologically possible. It will only move on, you know, kind of skip you if that day your library is closed or that day a library is closed, but it won't see that like on Fridays you close at 3 o'clock and route. So, you know, after that, people would really love that, and the DOCLINE developers are aware of that. But right now, it's not technically possible. So I thought I did see a chat come in. Okay, I get requests for journals that have embargo. I've checked my records in DOCLINE. I've indicated that there is a 12-month embargo. Yeah, I'm jotting that down. I think there is information in the manual about embargo requests, but yeah, I will follow up on that question when I send the email out. I will let you know what I hear, but that you're not alone in that observation. So I will check on that, and I'm not sure if there is a fix in the works for that.
And Margot, there's a comment before that too about how that impacts statistics.
Okay. Yes. Okay. I will star that question and make sure I can find out what's going on. Okay. All right. Well, I hope this was helpful to you. It was helpful for me to hear that. So if I'm understanding correctly, HISLIC sort of still does operate amongst yourselves, but not as a group in a routing table. Janet, am I getting that right?
Well, the reason we existed as a group is that so we knew that library was from Maine, and that we wouldn't be charging. We had agreed, HISLIC had agreed not to charge each other. So that existed as a group. So we knew that. And then we had this whole algorithm that we used all of the libraries in HISLIC in certain spots in our tables.
Okay.
Just so that the larger libraries didn't get overwhelmed.
Okay.
So it did exist as a group and was being used as a group, just
Okay.
not in the same way like free share is used as a group.
Okay. Okay. Well, that's helpful. So, so yeah, so it's good for me to touch base with people who, because doing DOCLINE support is like part of my job, just like interlibrary loan is just part of your job, but it's good for me to hear from the users about how things are actually working for you. So I can hang on another minute or so. If there are any other comments in the chat, I will again send the recording, the links that we shared, and I will send the link, the recording out too through the special interest group with NASAL and on the academic libraries special interest group for Maine Medical Association, so that this is information is widely available. Oh, I'm glad that there's a comment that the interlibrary loan librarian just retired, so this will be helpful information for this library for training purposes for who's ever going to be taking over that function. Great. All right, I am going to.
Margot, there's one more comment too.
Sure.
If you don't lend internationally, will stating that in your library information record prevent you from receiving international requests?
Let me double check on that. I think I think there's probably one other step you would have to take, but I will look into that as well. Okay. All right. Let me stop the recording. Thank you, everyone.